For this lesson, go into your exercise folder and open up 788_2. On this one, I want to change the mood of the image by changing the background behind her. Now, we're talking about something here. We're talking about selecting hair. You ever try to select hair with like the lasso tool? What I have with my models is I have a contract they have to sign where they have to shave their heads because it's so easy to select around a bald head. None have signed that contract yet. We can do this. Now, I teach a class for Infinite Skills on just Photoshop, and I get into a whole lot of detail about what I'm going to show you kind of quickly here because I've already made it. It's in the Channels panel, and there it is. The selection with her hair. So I don't want to leave you hanging here and say, just go to the Photoshop class. How do you do something like this? I mean, that is complicated, but not really. If I go back up here and click RGB, what I do when I'm shooting something like this, and this is not my photo, this is PhotoSpins, but when I'm shooting a photograph of a model, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I might want to take that model out of that background. I make sure that the background is a different color than what the model's hair is. So the background's dark. Her hair, of course, is extremely light. That's perfect. So what I do next is I go into the channels. You have 3 channels of red, green, and blue. And these are the actual mixing of the colors to produce the colors that you see. What I'm looking for, I call this 3 strikes and you're out, is that I'm looking for one of the channels where I can see a really big difference between what I want and what I don't want. Now, in this case, I think red or green would probably do it, but I'm going to go to red. So I decided red is my channel because I can see these hairs. I drag red down to the new icon to make a copy. Red copy. Select it. And to further enhance the contrast, I'm going to go up to the word image and down to adjustments and go into curves. Now in curves, what I want to do is I want the light areas even lighter and the dark areas even darker. So I'm going to put a point right here. I'm going to go right about to here and just drag up. I don't care what it looks like. I'm just looking for something I can select out of. And I try as much as possible to get a contrast going on this copy channel. Once that's done, and you might have to play with that for a few minutes to get what you want, I then might come over to my magic wand tool. I love that tool. Come over here. Now my tolerance is only like about a 5, which is kind of where I want it. And I've turned off contiguous. And I come over here and I click. Now I'm going to get other stuff. Don't worry about that. I'm concerned about getting those hairs. And then I hold the shift key down and just play around a bit until I get what I think is everything that I need to kind of get the job done. And then this stuff to me is cleanup. I come over here and pick up my lasso tool. Now to remove a selection from something, hold down the Alt key, and that's the Option key on Mac, Alt, and Windows. I'm going to draw a big old circle around this area like this. And eventually you will have, it'll take you a couple of minutes, eventually what you are going to have once you make it as a channel by clicking this button here is something that, well, looks like that. It is not that hard, but I consider selection a totally keystone skill. Anything you're doing, whether it's photography or image manipulation, requires precise, believable selections. And that's kind of how I got that one. Now, once I've got it, what do I do with it? Let's go back to RGB right here. And we do have 2 things. We have our lady, and we have the background we want to put her into right there. Now, how do I make that into a selection? And we're going to be using these other ones later on in this chapter. Let me get rid of that one. We don't need it. That was just kind of like a test. Come up here and hold down the Control key, and that's Command on a Mac, Control on Windows, and click on it. Okay, it's now translated into a selection. We can then come up to the word Select on the pull-down menu and go down to Refine Edge. Now, in Refine Edge, we can then decide what we want. We can even change the view to show it against the layer that it's underneath and decide if we like that. What we do next is decide if we want to make any changes. For example, we can change the radius. Now, that's the area it kind of looks for the edge in. We can smooth it. Now, if we do that, we're going to lose some of those stray hairs. It's up to you. We can feather. add some contrast, shift the edge, which in this case I did a pretty good selection, so I don't want to do too much, but I do want to shift it about 1 or 2. Now, in decontaminating colors, it helps pull the colors of her blonde hair out from the background. We had a solid color background, so that really doesn't make any difference. If you like what you see, you can come over here and say output to what? Well, we go to selection. How about make it a layer mask? That gives us control. Click OK. Now, anytime we want to see the before and the after, since it's a mask, you can hold on the Shift key, and you can see her there and now there. Now, some of those hairs, you can still see them, but they're kind of lost against that background, which is fine. Before and after, based on our extraction, based on our channel. Now, the others, these are pretty predictable. I mean, I just made a selection and turned it into an alpha channel. Pupils, whites, same thing down here, a little bit more complicated. That's everything but her face. Tell you what, you don't have to save this one if you don't want to, because I do have another evolution of this one to go into the next lesson. However, if you want to work with the one that you're doing, feel free to save it.